Hey, this is Super Game Ghost, and you're watching the top 10 most expensive Sega Saturn games. For reference, this list only encompasses North American releases and is based on complete in-box prices. Let's start. Lunacy is an adventure/interactive movie game released in 1997. It was developed by System Satcom and published by Atlas. The game is about a traveler named Fred who ends up in a place called Misty Town with no memory of his past. The gameplay consists of moving Fred around town, interacting with residents, and solving puzzles. At the time of release, reviews were fairly mixed for this game. The overall consensus was that some of the animations were not up to snuff and the puzzles were too easy. Surprisingly, there wasn't too much said about the voice acting and dialogues, which are mostly like this.
You threw me in prison, punk! Why did you do that?
Did I do that?
Overall, this game has many dated features and is sometimes unintentionally humorous. However, it does have its moments and could be rewarding for the more patient gamer. Lunacy goes for $340.
Welcome to the illustrious Misty Town Jail, stranger.
Power Slave is an FPS game released in 1996. It was developed by Lobotomy Studios and published by Playmates Interactive. In the game, you play as a special ops guy who is sent to defeat unknown alien insectoids who have taken over the ancient Egyptian city of Karnak. The gameplay is typical of the first-person shooters of the 90s era and is stylistically something like Doom plus Stargate SG-1. Interestingly enough, the game engine that was first developed for this game was later used to run the Saturn ports of Duke Nukem 3D and Quake. The game saw an enhanced version released for all the modern consoles in 2022 under the name Power Slave Exhumed. Power Slave goes for $350.
Welcome, mortal. I am King Ramses. When my body was laid to rest here, my name was not forgotten.
The House of the Dead is a light gun shooter released in 1998. It was developed by Tantalus Interactive and published by Sega. The story behind the House of the Dead and its many iterations usually involves some special agents who are on a mission to suppress a bioengineered zombie apocalypse.
Everyone's getting killed.
Now this might just be me, but this sounds a lot like this other popular series of games about zombies. Or maybe not. The House of the Dead ran on the same engine as Sega's Virtual Cop and was first introduced to the arcades in 1996.
Thank you.
The arcade version of this game was a huge hit and was the highest grossing arcade game of 1998. The Saturn version was met with less favorable reviews but still held up a positive review aggregate. This title saw a remake in 2022 for the PC and modern consoles. I actually have a soft spot for the House of the Dead series. I remember playing this and the Dreamcast sequel at my friend's house dozens, if not hundreds of times, and just having loads of fun. The House of the Dead goes for $440. Saturn Bomberman is a maze game released in 1997. It was developed by Hudson Soft and published by Sega. This game features two modes of play, a story mode and a versus mode. The story mode maybe has some sort of actual story, but it's really just negligible. What happens in story mode is that in each level you are placed in a maze where you must clear a path with your bombs in order to navigate towards 3 red beacons. Once the 3 red beacons are destroyed, an exit opens up and you are able to advance to the next level. After finishing a series of levels in a stage, you end up facing a boss. The crowning achievement and the most praised aspect of this game is its versus mode. With 2 multi-taps, this game supports up to 10 players in versus mode. The North American version of this game also supported 4-player netplay. Before this game, I've only ever played Bomberman 64, which is much more action-adventure oriented. The maze levels in this game are fun for a little while, but they start feeling repetitive at some point. On the other hand, the bosses are quite challenging and require lots of trial and error in order to beat them. Saturn Bomberman goes for $460. Burning Rangers is a third-person shooter released in 1998. It was developed by the Sonic team and published by Sega. In this game, you take on the role of a futuristic firefighter. The gameplay is essentially a rinse and repeat cycle of collecting crystals, putting out fires, and rescuing hostages. The game features only 4 stages with a boss at the end of each stage. Reviews for this game were predominantly positive, with most praise given to its graphics and gameplay. What most critics disliked about the game was the lack of music and the fact that the game itself was very short. I thought the controls for this game were super clunky and the game's premise was just not appealing at all. What I did like and thought was unique about the game was the voice navigation system used to direct the player through the stages. Burning Rangers goes for $560.
Control room located underground in basement level number 1. Roger!
Mega Man 8 is a side-scrolling platformer released in 1997. It was developed and published by Capcom. This game was the first in the Mega Man series to be released on 32-bit consoles. It followed suit with previous games in the series and featured all the usual conventions and gameplay elements seen in previous Mega Man games. Along with improved graphics and sound, this game was the first in the series to include animated cutscenes and voiceovers. The game sold very well and reviews of it were mostly positive. The biggest criticism reviewers had of this game was that it offered very little in terms of innovative gameplay. They argued that this game just used the same old formula from previous iterations and that it did not fully take advantage of the 32-bit console's capabilities. To all that, I say, why fix what's not broken? I'm a huge fan of the Mega Man franchise and I find that each title is unique and interesting in its own way. I especially love the music in the Mega Man games and even find myself listening to the OSTs regularly. Mega Man 8 goes for $570.
Hey, Baz! Why must I fight you? We are not enemies!
Shut up!
Magic Knight Ray Earth is an action RPG released in 1998. It was developed by Sega and published by Working Designs. This game is based on the first arc of the 1993 manga and subsequent anime of the same name. In Japan, this was one of the original 12 titles released for the Sega Saturn. Localization of this title took nearly 3 years to complete due to a slew of issues. Consequently, the North American market only ever saw this game at the end of the Saturn's lifecycle. The game follows 3 8th grade girls who are magically teleported into a world known as Sephiroth. Each of the 3 characters in the party are controlled individually and have their own unique weapons and spells. At the time of its release, this game got okay reviews and sits at about 70 out of 100 on Metacritic. Most critics' biggest issue with the game were its outdated graphics. Personally, I don't mind the outdated graphics that much, but the chibi style sprites are mildly irritating. What impressed me the most about this title was the voice acting work. I don't think I've ever heard such high quality voice acting in any video game from the 90s era.
Isn't that bad manners? Okay, fine. You stay out here.
Magic Knight Ray Earth goes for $780. Battlesport is a sports game released in 1997. It was developed by Cyclone Studios and published by Acclaim. The simplicity of this game cannot be overstated. In this game, you play as a spaceship whose sole purpose is to get a basketball into a rotating cube. During each game, you enter an arena and play head-to-head against your opponent. The objective of the game is to score more goals than your opponent after 3 periods have elapsed. Also, the spacecraft you control has blasters and missiles which you can use to blow up your opponent's spacecraft for about 1 whole second before it immediately respawns again. I don't even care what critics had to say about this game. This game is pure gold. Someone might say, hey, what about Rocket League? Isn't that just an objectively better game? I would say no. Rocket League is dog crap compared to the majesty that is battle sports. If you don't believe me, then just try it out for yourselves. I dare you. Battle Sports goes for $900. Panzer Dragoon Saga is an RPG released in 1998. It was developed by Team Andromeda and published by Sega. In this game, you play as a dragon-mounted mercenary who seeks to avenge his fallen comrades. Unlike the other iterations in the Panzer Dragoon series, which were all rail shooters, this title plays like a traditional RPG with random encounters. Saga's battle system is actually quite unique. One interesting thing about the battle system is that you are able to position your dragon around the enemy in order to take advantage of their weaknesses. This title went into development with the hopes of creating an RPG for the Saturn that would rival Final Fantasy and the Sony PlayStation. The development of Saga was grueling because many mechanics had to be made from scratch and a lot of the game systems would push the Saturn hardware to its limits. During development, 2 developers had even died due to the stress from working on this title. The game director himself suffered from depression upon completion of this title and had stated that this was the most difficult project he had ever worked on. Unfortunately, this game was one of the last entries into the Sega Saturn catalog, and its sales in North America were very limited. However, this game has the highest review score among all the games released for the Sega Saturn. Its score is 92 out of 100 according to Metacritic. It was universally praised by critics at the time of its release for its uniqueness and fresh take on what an RPG could be. Panzer Dragoon Saga goes for $1,000. Daytona USA Netlink Edition is a racing game released in 1998. It was developed by Sega AM3 and published by Sega. This game is essentially an enhanced version of the original Daytona USA, which is one of the best-selling arcade games of all time and is frequently called one of the best video games of all time. An enhanced sequel was ported to the Saturn in 1996, which would then be known as Daytona USA Championship Circuit Edition. Later in 1998, this particular version on our list was exclusively released in North America with the addition of Netlink compatibility. The game itself features 5 racetracks and a variety of stock cars to choose from. The game received decent reviews and was really only criticized for some minor graphics and clipping issues. Like many of the other games on this list, this game was released at the very end of the Saturn's lifecycle and saw a very limited release.
You place 30th.
Daytona Complete in box goes for $4,800. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe.